Hi, this is John Tunison, CFO at Soluna, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of our AMA, or Ask Me Anything series. First, I wanted to say Happy New Year to you. This is our first recorded session after the new year. Obviously, 2024 was an exciting year for Soluna, and I hope it was a successful and healthy and great year for all of you as well. And we look forward to working together with you. Whether you're an existing investor or perhaps you're considering becoming an investor, we hope 2025 year is going to be a great year for you as well. So before I get into the details of the questions, a few legal things. So let me remind you that the following content is completely qualified by the legal disclosures on the slide following this one. As always, our goal is to share with you some of our strategic thinking and financial analysis that we're using to guide and the growth of our business. The content's in line with our principles of being accountable and transparent with shareholders. Keep in mind we operate in a hyper-dynamic economic environment, and that's just really a fancy way of saying that things can and do change quickly. And what we're telling you here is based on our estimates and assumptions, which are our best guess. We reserve the right to revise our point of view based on new information and changes in the business environment. Despite an uncertain and dynamic environment, we must plan and make operating and investment decisions. And this presentation lays some of that out for your review. So our first question comes to us from Jason, who asked, when will you resume the preferred dividend payments that have been left to the board's evaluation? And can you share the metrics used by the board to assess whether to resume paying the Series A preferred dividends? So thank you, Jason, for your question. This is one that has come up before. What I would say is that the board weighs the overall outlook for the company's sources of cash flow, its cash needs for operations, and investment and other general uses. Resumption of the payment of dividends is possibly going to occur when the board judges that the forward outlook of cash flow, after accounting for growth uses, is sufficient to resume these payments. And our next question comes from Zach, who asks, what does the financing pipeline look like for HPC? And assuming that half of Kadi is AI, it looks like about $2.5 billion of cost to finance the build-out. Is the company able to access enough funding for this? And is there enough investor interest? Well, let me unpack that and answer it in a couple of different ways. So first of all, you may know, but in case you don't, the development of HPC data centers occurs over what I would describe as a continuum. And this ranges from powered land all the way up to the full construction of an HPC data center, fully ready to commence operations. And the company's financing pipeline will really seek to optimize the returns on the invested capital. And that's after we weigh factors such as the costs of different types of capital, the risks faced in developing the project and financing the project, investor capabilities and their preferences, and ultimately end customer needs and preferences. To give you an idea of the costs, a very generic rule of thumb that you could use is that each megawatt of secured power costs between $10 and $15 million to develop into an HPC data center. This doesn't include the HPC equipment, such as the GPUs. And this results in about 0.7 to 0.9 megawatts of actual installed HPC compute. The other 0.1 to 0.3 megawatts goes to power other uses that are non-compute loads, such as the heating and cooling systems, or the HVAC systems. So how is the company going about seeking this financing? So we're currently engaged with a range of infrastructure and sustainability investors, industry experts, joint venture partners, and end customers, all of whom have a strong and immediate interest in working with Soluna to determine the optimized development and financing path and to realize that path for each of its pipeline projects. We look forward to communicating more details on this in due course as appropriate. Zach also asked, What is the current status of Project Grace? Is there a development pipeline? What will the cost structure look like? And will the current 512 GPU cluster at Project Ada be shifted to the new location to lower the overall project development costs? Great question, Zach. There's a couple of different elements to this. So let me first talk about Grace, then I'll come back to Ada. So Project Grace, to refresh, is our 2 megawatt Helix designed HPC AI data center that's located adjacent to Project Dorothy in North Texas. It's currently continuing to progress through our initial design phases, after which we'll have more specific development timelines and we'll be able to be locked in and communicate those to you, and which will also enable the company to start to work to secure the necessary financing to commence the construction and development of the facility. So although there's a general timeline, it's not specific enough, and it would be premature to communicate that since we're in the early planning phases. Project Ada, on the other hand, is the project that houses our partnership with HPE, currently 512 GPUs in 64 clusters. And this has a completely different cost structure for Soluna than an owned and operated facility would have. And this will depend on various factors, such as the model that we employ, which, for example, could be a hosted high-performance compute AI model where a customer or customers own the HPC equipment and Soluna operates, which would have a significantly different cost structure than if Soluna, for example, owned the HPC equipment and made it available as a GPU as a service model. Customers of Project Ada may continue to grow within our HPE partnership, or it could be possible to migrate some or all of them to a hosted customer at Grace, or a proprietary GPU as a service model leveraging Grace. But it's too early in the development timeline to be able to communicate those definitive details. But we look forward to talking more about that as that continues to develop. Our next question comes from Donnie. Donnie asked us, I was trying to find completion dates for your upcoming project sites, which means estimated dates for when these projects will be fully functional. Project Dorothy 2, Project Grace, and Project Kati. And Donnie also mentioned that he's one of our newer investors. So first, let me say we're glad to have you on board, and thanks for joining our committed investor community, Donnie. So we typically communicate our project completion dates once we have a degree of certainty about them. For Project Dorothy 2, we're looking to complete the project in 3 phases, with the first phase being on track to complete during second quarter 2025. So we're getting very close to that. It's really exciting to see that project come into fruition. We've got a lot of great progress out there on site. And then each subsequent phase about 3 months thereafter. And so we expect Dorothy 2 full energization closer to the end of 2025. As far as Project Kati goes, it'll follow a similar development cycle where we'll reach initial energization somewhere between 6 to 9 months following becoming shovel ready and closing the project financing, in particular for the Bitcoin portions of the project. We'll announce more details on Project Kati soon, but stand by for that. We're making a lot of exciting progress there. And as already indicated in a prior answer, we don't yet have a definitive timeline for Project Grace, but we do look forward to making additional announcements on that this year. Thanks again, Donnie. Prem asked, any particular reason the stock price is crashing, despite all the great news and work you all appear to be doing? Well, Prem, first, it's generally not our policy to speculate on movements in our share price because it just depends on too many factors. There's quite a range of them. But I would say this, that we've significantly reduced our convertible note facility, in fact, taking it down to 0, which obviously when that happens, creates a lot of conversion shares. And we've seen several warrant exercises. And those two together have introduced a large number of shares to the market. And I'd say it's likely that that's had an impact on our share price. But beyond that, I think it would be speculative to comment on that. Our next question is from Tomas. I've been wondering whether Soluna's pipeline of energy procurement might be valued correctly or at all by the market or not. In an environment where access to energy has become the choke point, I would think that this pipeline is very valuable. In fact, probably more valuable than Soluna's operating assets. It's a bit like a junior miner or oil company being valued for its reserves rather than for its current production. That is, only if investors are sufficiently aware of it, believe in it, and can put a number of future cash flows on it. So thanks for your question, Tomas. This one actually got me pretty excited. I have some oil and gas in my background, and so I want to continue with that example that you gave and give some more detail about how we're thinking about this. And I think to partially explain why, I think the short answer is no, perhaps we're not getting the full credit for the value. But there's still a lot of steps to go before we're going to be able to unlock that full value. So let me answer it that way. So, I am going to use an oil and gas example. So imagine you're the owner of land and there's confirmed oil and gas in the ground. Well, that owner could expect one kind of value for that asset. Whereas if another owner had a piece of land with those same dynamics, but it's got wells that have been drilled, production capability proven, and all the infrastructure installed to be able to store, transport, and produce that oil and gas into major distribution hubs, obviously that owner's going to be in a different position and have a different value equation for what they have. And then taking it even further, the owner of a multi-billion-dollar refinery who can take those products and refine them can expect quite a different value than the owner of a gasoline station, for example, who receives finished barrels of gasoline and sells them to a consumer. The key here is that once a stakeholder in a value chain demonstrates their capability within the value chain to execute well, essentially their share of the value might also increase. So each step from the discovery to the delivery of a finished product to an end user, it all requires several different things: capital, expertise, time, other resources, other capabilities. And essentially, the total value of the final finished product is shared across a whole range of stakeholders. So, quite frankly, although we're not in the oil and gas business, there's a lot of dissimilarities. The business of transforming land and rays of sunshine or gusts of wind into AI factories has a similarly complicated dynamic. So for Soluna's value to increase, we've got to do a few things. So first, we have to secure land and the access to the power. And this is something we've already done and continue to grow our backlog of these assets. The next thing is we've got to invest significant capital and resources in order to progress the development and get to where we have data centers. And this is what we're working on. We've done this successfully in a number of projects on the Bitcoin side, and we're working on this for the AI and high performance compute side. And we have to possess a wide range of know-how and capability. And so we've already secured some of the necessary partnerships and resources, and we're working to secure additional ones to have from A to Z the full know-how and capability for doing this. So our strategy of securing the unique access to sustainable power, forming a credible and deep network of experienced resources and partners, and demonstrating the capability to successfully build and operate data centers in Bitcoin mining and hosting, we have already done that. And that should give you a glimpse into what we're doing and how we're undertaking doing the same thing for HPC and AI. And hopefully it should give you and others in the market confidence in our ability to do so successfully in the HPC and AI space. Of course, this will take time, but should result in the value that you're asking about being fully realized in full, in due course. Thanks again for the question. I enjoyed thinking about that and answering that, Tomas. An anonymous stakeholder asked, could you please specify your own Bitcoin hash rate and not just the sum of your own plus hosted? And how are you standing in this regard right now? Great question. So first I want to point you towards our earnings power presentations, and we update those annually or more frequently. We'll have a link in the presentation if you want to download that to our latest one. Otherwise, you can find it on our website. Go to solunacomputing.com, look for our investors section, and you'll find it linked in there. So I'd recommend that you go there And we'll be refreshing that analysis in the coming months. We typically update it around the time that we release our annual results in our 10K, which is coming up. But to give you a little more specificity, we're currently seeing hash prices that are well above what we last showed as the base case. And to be frank, we're more or less approaching what we showed as the upside case. So I think that should give you a pretty good idea of where we're at on our hash rate. Next question, Johnny asked, anyone interested in trying to find trapped energy for you guys? What do you look for in a potential site? And do you have resources we could use? Well, thanks, Johnny. And we welcome leads and help, and can certainly do great things with that. Let me first address your first question about what are the criteria, and then I'll come back to what's the best way to help us out in that respect. So we use a range of evaluation criteria. It's a pretty thorough and detailed list, but let me boil it down into a couple of the most important ones that should hopefully make sense to you. But first I would call out the percent of power production capacity at a project, specifically a renewable project that's curtailed. Monetizing curtailed power is a big part of our value proposition to our power partners. The second thing is siting in a deregulated market. This is what enables us to operate behind the meter effectively, which again is a core part of our model. The third is proximity of fiber. It's important when you're building data centers that we have strong and redundant, low latency connection to the internet. And this is especially important for AI and high performance compute. Fourth one would be density of renewable power in the immediate area. This is indicative of future congestion and additional project synergies, and generally favorable wholesale power prices. All good things for our projects. And finally, I would say availability of buildable land adjacent to or near the project substation. And this just enables efficient interconnection of the data center, both into the project and the grid. So what resources? Well, we are your best resource. Quite frankly, if you have some leads, I would recommend that you make us aware of those. And best way to do that is you can send them to us using our website contact page, which we're linking to in the presentation, or you can send it to hello@soluna.io. And either way, that'll get into the right teams here at Soluna who can reach out and talk to you about that. But thanks again, Johnny. John asked, what's the expected timeline to have enough scale or revenue to become profitable as a public company to cover OPEX and SG&A expenses? Let me rephrase that. When are you going to be cash self-sustaining, right? So as we continue to execute our strategy to develop our pipeline, we're going to continue to add cash flows at each energization. The next of which will be when Dorothy 2 starts to energize in second quarter of this year. And that'll progress through the end of 2025 when that project is fully energized. The next project after that is likely to be Kati. And I'd want to highlight with our pipeline growth and the near-term expansion to simultaneously developing multiple projects at the same time, as well as our emerging cloud and AI data center businesses, we will also continue to need to invest in resources. So the combination of these two factors, new cash flows coming on as we complete and construct projects and energize them, but also the investments we're making to further accelerate our business model and realize the significant opportunities in front of us, makes it pretty hard to specify a particular date by which we'll achieve cash sustainability. But I would say we're well on our way to doing that. And we're focused on reaching that point as soon as we can. But we're also looking to simultaneously not jeopardize our ability to realize the considerable growth opportunities that we have. I mean, we are in growth mode right now. Our last question comes from Michael. When are you going to install H200 GPUs? Is this part of the HPE cooperation as well? Great question. So our current HPE partnership secured H100 GPUs, but this could clearly grow into H200 GPUs in time with HPE. And additionally, as we develop AI and HPC data centers, it seems increasingly likely that they're going to be designed and will house current generation GPUs. So this means could very well house H200s or even next generation after that haven't been announced yet. I think the short answer is yes, it's likely that H200s will be deployed in our business going forward. Too early to tell exactly in which project and what timing that would occur. So, well, that's it for this month. Really enjoyed answering these questions for you. I enjoy getting to read them and coming up with the best answers for you. Let me remind you that you can interact with us in a variety of ways. If you asked a question, by the way, and we didn't get to it, hopefully we'll get it into the next presentation. If you have other questions, feel free to ping us on X at Soluna Holdings. You can message us and interact with us on LinkedIn. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and check out our website. We have ways for you to contact us there. And of course, we publish regular updates in the form of press releases and our various SEC filings. Thanks again, and that's it for now.